And welcome back. Thank you for staying with us. It's time for Opinion Court. Please do get in touch with us. 22422 is our SMS line. You could tweet us at Citizen TV Kenya and at Citizen TV News. And we go by the Facebook pages by the respective names. Please use the hashtag Opinion Court. I want to reintroduce my panel to you. Of course, right next to me is Babayao. I hear now it's Waititu. Is that the case? Ferdinand Waititu, who's hoping to vie for the Kabete parliamentary seat in the middle. Professor Edward Kisiangani, our resident political panelist, and from the Powers and Privileges Committee in Parliament, Kimani Waishungwa. I thank you all for coming. We want to center our conversation right now on what is taking place in Parliament and the integrity question that is facing members of Parliament and the institution en masse. Kimani, I want to start with you. Starting from last year when we saw the security laws passed in the most acrimonious fashion. In fact, in my earlier interview, Waititu here referred to that sort of behavior and said, are those people any better than me? To what we have seen, those were your words, sir. To what we have seen in the last few weeks with the crisis unraveling in terms of corruption in various committees, at least 3 have been mentioned so far. What is happening in Parliament?
First, and let me say it's allegations and counter-allegations of corruption and issues to do with financial impropriety on the part of members of Parliament. But I must again say that I'm very guarded as to what I can discuss on this program because, as you rightly said, I'm a member of the Powers and Privileges Committee, under which mandate the issue has been referred to by the Speaker of the National Assembly. But tellingly, if you listen to the Speaker when he forwarded the issue to the Powers and Privileges Committee, his closing remarks were a quote actually by Winston Churchill, where he said, before that he had just called on members to search their souls and conscience as to whether some of our actions as members of Parliament befit the status we hold as members of Parliament. And he closed by quoting Winston Churchill, saying that if you have integrity, nothing else matters. And if you have no integrity, again, nothing else matters. And that's all the process in Parliament is trying to do.
But would you say what we are seeing, at least this year, is peculiar to previous sessions of Parliament? Is this unusual, or is this, just another day at the office?
Well, maybe Babayao can tell us, or Babayetu, as we rightly call him. And let me first say congratulations to Babayetu. I did mention he was Babayao when he was in Nairobi. Now that he's come to Kiambu, he's Babayetu. Maybe he can tell us in previous parliaments, because I'm a first-time member of Parliament. This is my first time in Parliament. But again, I want to say it may not necessarily be peculiar. It's probably that Parliament now is a bit more open, and people, again, with the new constitutional dispensation, are able to talk more openly. But then I say it may not be peculiar because members of Parliament are not angels who dropped from heaven into Parliament. They were elected by the Kenyan public. The things that are going on in Parliament and outside Parliament are the things that Kenyans do out here. And I was discussing with someone today, and I was asking myself during that debate, we need as Kenyans also to search, even we as members of Parliament, search our conscience. Even Kenyans do seriously need to search their conscience as to the way we elect our leaders. I was just telling Prof here before we started the show, if he was to go to Western Kenya to run for a political seat today in Bungoma, he will have it rough because the public back there expects to be paid to elect him to Parliament.
Prof, do you have plans that you have not announced?
No.
No,
if you were to do that. And I think we need, as Kenyans, to search our conscience and ask ourselves, how do we elect our leaders?
Let me search your conscience a little bit.
Yes.
You are obviously a supporter of Ferdinand Waititu. You have supported his candidature for the JAP, in the JAP party for the Kabete seat. You have seen the clips that we've played and his style of politics that many have called more than abrasive, even thuggish. And you have just talked about the Speaker saying that we have to search our conscience if our behavior befits the office. Do you believe his behavior befits the office that he wants to now hold?
Let me say this, because I listened to him last week during the campaigns. Him saying that there is no action that he has ever taken out there, not for his own benefit. And whenever we have seen Mheshimiwa Waititu do anything, he has done it in the best interest of the people he was representing then. I must say that Kabete indeed is a different constituency from the constituency he was representing in Nairobi. And he will definitely be expected to carry himself in a better way. But again, I would excuse him. I will tell you, only in December last year, I found myself in a situation where I did not have to throw stones, but I did find myself in a situation where I had to stand up against authorities that had locked up a market in Thika, Makongeni. And I went and joined the Member for Parliament for Thika to ensure that the county government of Kiambu opened up that market, because it was unfair to the people. And we stood our ground. We did not throw any stones, despite the police and certain county officials using live ammunition against us and the people who are demonstrating. And I think under the new constitutional dispensation again, there are certain things that are expected of us as leaders. And also, there are also certain freedoms that have largely been opened up, like the right to demonstrate and picket. And I think we are all living in under a different constitutional dispensation and different circumstances.
Fair enough. Let me open it up to Prof. Your thoughts on what we are seeing in the current parliament, and essentially an argument that I'm hearing repeatedly now is that however our parliamentarians are acting, it's all right, the end justifies the means.
Yeah, I would also begin from there. And I don't know whether Honorable Kimani is aware about the implications of the statement the Speaker made. And indeed, if the Speaker made that, he actually justified the chaos and disrespect you see in Parliament. If indeed, when you have no integrity, the end is the same, namely that nothing else matters, and even when you have integrity, the end is the same, meaning
when you have no integrity.
Yeah, but you read it again and you'll see. I think, and I'm very frustrated as a Kenyan. If you look at what is happening in the Parliament, I think Kenyans don't know how some of us have suffered, how many stomach upsets I have had, how many bouts of nausea I've had when I think about this Parliament, because I don't know how we can fix the problem. And here you have a parliamentarian, first term parliamentarian. I think if, Honorable Waititu, you have fellows like Kimani Ichung'wah supporting you, you don't have good friends. You know that what you did when you threw stones was wrong. And you must accept as a leader, you did something wrong. That is not the kind of MP that people want. So you did something wrong. And here he's saying, you know, he can excuse you and do it. Then you pumped in somebody and started punching him. That was wrong. You are a father of children who should be protected, not children who should be beaten. So if you have the correct friends, I'm sure when you go to Parliament, you are likely to get fellows like this cheering you when you do the wrong thing. But I am a better friend to you than this MP, because I'll tell you that this is right and this is wrong. You are human and you can apologize that. And I think your observation that really what is happening in Parliament is they are not better than what you did. You already recognize that probably you did something wrong. And these guys are also doing something wrong, and they still want you to be convicted of what you have done. What is wrong is they have done it in Parliament under parliamentary privileges, fighting. They have hit each other. But there are serious integrity questions. This Parliament, and everybody looks at it for leadership. Everybody wants them to give direction. When they fight, when they accuse each other of corruption and still want to stay in Parliament, where do we turn to?
That's a good question.
I appreciate the sentiment by Mr. Kisiangani.
Yes.
But I also want to say that I think he has some ignorance of what happens on the ground. When people grab a school land that has been benefiting 3,000 students, the first thing that should be condemned is that grabbing. That is the biggest evil. That is any formula. Just wait. Just wait, Kizangani.
I support you on that because
just wait, Kizangani.
Yes.
Because it's something that has been happening here.
Yes.
If somebody grabs such a school land that only benefits poor students,
yeah,
and he wants those poor parents to start going to court, to drag the case in court, and he's still benefiting from the piece of land, and I'm their MP, I use any means possible to first recover that land from that person, to make sure that he's not there. Then he goes to court himself, and try to recover. But I cannot subject my constituents to a situation where they start fundraising to go to court. Let me tell you, what has brought all these problems in this country as far as corruption is concerned. Corruption in Kenya is not treated as an evil as it is treated in some other countries. Because you go to Eastern Europe, some people even are supposed to be hanged because of corruption. But in Kenya here, provided you can talk very, very nicely, you can appear to be having very good manners, you do all the forms of corruption.
The system doesn't work?
The system doesn't work.
I think
sincerely.
He's raising a very good point.
Even
in self-defense.
Please allow him to respond to what you said.
Yes. You are raising a very...
I want you to put you in proper perspective. Corruption is the biggest problem that we have in this country. Like now, what happened in Angata Road? That school land had been taken, but do you remember they went there, the minister went there the next morning with the bulldozers to recover the land? That to me was also crude. They could have gone to court. But when personally I use any means possible to recover the land, and let me tell you, first and foremost, you know there was nobody who was hurt. I only used some antics to recover the land.
I want to help you.
You have to allow Professor to respond.
Let me respond. You know what looks like the MP elect for Kabete? Am I right?
Yes. Oh yes.
Yes.
I think it makes him more happy.
Yes.
Yeah, but what is saying, what you are raising, raises another issue. That the behavior that we are witnessing today, either in Parliament, or even outside Parliament, is actually a reflection of exactly what Honorable Waititu is saying. That even these parliamentarians, they are just hypocrites. They have lost faith in the same institutions they keep talking about.
In which they want to be elected into.
In which they want to be elected into. They say, we want the rule of law. He says, you must first of all break the law, and then they take you to court, because he knows if that guy goes to court, he will not receive what? This is a damning, indictment of what? Our judicial system. Our institutions don't work. That is what Parliament is saying. So that's why Kimani, for example...
And is Parliament one of them that is not working?
Parliament doesn't work, because for institutions to work, they must respect the law. They don't work. And that's why, as my brother has said, he went to Makogen. I saw him on television, extremely agitated. And what he was doing is not what he was taught at Alliance High School. I've been telling him he was taught good manners. But look at what he has joined mods to break the law and wait for other institutions to fail.
Professor, hold on, Ferdinand. Professor, let me ask you a question, which was alluded to by Kimani here. He's basically said a phrase that I hear from my news editor quite a bit, saying good people cannot be elected even to manage a cattle dip. You know, the point being that the crop of leaders that we put in Parliament are the ones we want. There is something that endears us, it appears, to leaders like, and I'm sorry, sir, you have to be the example tonight, Ferdinand Waititu, who will use all means necessary. What do you think that is? Is it the feeling that good people aren't willing to do what it takes to get a result? Are Kenyans more interested in a result than process?
No, I think the bottom line, if you look at most of these so-called good people, they are tribal ethnic zealots. And they say, even when they fight, if you see Ferdinand Waititu is fighting, you have heard he has said he is going back home. And he's living in Bakassi. And the people he serves...
Was he fighting for his tribesmen in
No, wait. He's not
he did make an ethnic-related slur in Embakasi.
In fact, you had...
Not the same occasion. And
it's a different occasion.
I think Professor is good, and I think
why don't you give me some time?
Did say something.
Be patient.
That you're also exhibiting a bit of ignorance. For sure, even from our fight for independence in this country, there were laws and there was rule of law under the colonial government. But the means of achieving our independence, people had to take up arms. Even today, Professor,
let me give you an example.
A gangster will not walk into your house, grab your house and your property, and say there's a rule of law. I will watch you walk away with my property. And that is exactly what Ferdinand is saying. You will not
How is that different from what Okoa Kenya say when they say the masses must rise up and rescue this country from a path that they believe is counterproductive. How is what you've just said right now separate from
what
Kenya?
Okoa Kenya is? There was only something called Ukora Kenya, who are people who
the question is valid, sir.
Don't make a political statement.
Sorry, Professor, just hold on one second. You have sat previously on this show and opposed the court coalition on the basis of quote-unquote improper conduct, that it is their supporters who are willing to go to the streets and do the any means necessary that right now you are defending.
Any means necessary in the absence of any other justifiable legal means.
Isn't that what would argue with this government?
We have argued that the Ukora Kenya campaigners had alternatives under the rule of law, under the Constitution. If you want to disband IEBC, you cannot disband IEBC by calling masses onto the streets. If you want to disband IEBC, you cannot be the first to celebrate your victory in Kajiado. That was an election that was conducted by IEBC, but you are not ready to
let us not be naive. We are taking this debate to a very naive level. The public is watching us. Let's get to the main business. She asked a question about how people brought in the fellows we think have integrity issues and still maintain them. I thought when I talked about ethnicity, you thought that I was localizing that to a particular community, especially the one that Ferdinand was. Yes, but I will give you more examples of this in our public leadership. When you see Ababu Namwamba, for example, having problems with the Public Accounts Committee, when he goes to appear, he appears with his tribesmen. That is the kind of situation you have. It is not a Kikuyu affair. It is a Luhya affair. Everybody's doing that. But when they do that, the same fellow who has integrity issues becomes even more popular, because he will say what Ferdinand Waititu is saying, that I do it not for my personal things, but I do it for my people. And my people, quote unquote, are about people who come from your community. But if it is local, I'm completing. I'm just completing. But if it is at a local level where it is an inter-community thing, when you do something that has integrity issues, you look like you support your community. Those who oppose are against the community, and you will be punished heavily.
But for example, this case of Thika,
yes,
where they were helping the people to recover the market.
Yes.
You remember very well, some food was rotting in the market.
Yes, yes. Millions.
And millions of money was rotting in the market.
Yes.
Those poor people, traders there, were looking at them as their savior. What do you expect as a normal human being?
The county government
to take county government to court?
The court does not work, is it?
No.
The court does not work on a Saturday.
On a Saturday.
Food is locked up in a market on a Saturday, Kisiangani. That's what I'm telling you. You're also exhibiting.
So you take the law in your hands.
You must rescue the situation.
Let me say this, we did not in any way, Professor.
They are national leaders.
Let's allow them to respond.
We did not in any way take the law into our hands. We stood our ground to speak for the people who have elected us, to speak for them. Let me say this.
Why were some people injured? Why were some people injured?
You've spoken because the police misbehaved. We have, and the county government, of course, of Kiambu misbehaved by fast locking up that market.
Let me move our conversation forward, sir. Please allow me to do this because of time. I think your point has been made. Can we, though, trust parliamentarians who have been implicated in corruption scandals, and whom, quite frankly, public opinion is that when it comes to money and money going around, there is no cord or jubilee, it's how do we share it? How can we trust the same parliament in a committee like yours to investigate itself?
Let me make one thing very clear, first of all, Anne, that when the Speaker referred the matter to the Powers and Privileges Committee, he did not refer the question of corruption. The question that the majority leader had sought guidance from the Speaker on was the question of abuse of powers and privileges by the Public Accounts Committee. And that is the issue that the Powers and Privileges Committee is considering. And I really say that I cannot delve into the details of what we are looking into and the allegations and counter-allegations. But more importantly is to note that we have got constitutional institutions and commissions like EACC, CID, and other bodies that are mandated to fight corruption in this country. Nothing, as we speak now, precludes or even stops any of the other organs from summoning any of the members of parliament or indeed anybody else in this country who has been mentioned on matters to do with corruption to go and record statements and investigate. I do not know what they have been waiting for. The Speaker did not stop them. But again, coming back to parliament, let me say this. Today, something very interesting happened. And I was just going through the past activities in Parliament, and a motion was filed today by one of our members to discuss the conduct of the Speaker. And why a member wants us to discuss the conduct of the Speaker is because the Speaker, as the leader of that House, has stood very firm on matters to do with integrity, on matters to do with accountability. Someone complained that the Speaker did, when he was communicating with the House, mention that there are members of Parliament who go to Mombasa during retreats for report writing and are seen lounging in the beaches. And for sure, the Speaker, as the leader of that House, has every right to give direction. If I am in Mombasa on taxpayers' account to do, maybe to complete the report that we are doing for the Powers and Privileges Committee, I have no business during working hours, just like you have no business if you have gone on account of Citizen to Mombasa to work, to be seen doing your things in the beaches.
That is
and those things,
okay.
Those things are
Note to self.
those things, those are issues that as a House we must deal with, and as a nation we must also deal with.
Okay.
And we are only that open that we want to deal with these issues. But again, let me say that Parliament is not the house of bishops. It's not bishops who are in that house. It's political leaders. They are elected by Kenyans from different backgrounds.
Well, we certainly hope it's not criminals either.
Of course not criminals.
Let me, Prof, as you make your remarks, please make them your final remarks.
You see, he's creating an impression that, you see, he's engaged in a linguistic sophistry, where he wants us to believe that when you talk about abuse of office, which the Speaker referred to, and corruption in the committees is abuse of office. So whichever language you use, this linguistic sophistry does not help the public. It is about stealing of money, people getting favors, being bribed. This is happening. And so what we're saying is, he's even defending the Speaker about, standing for integrity. You leave us to judge the Speaker. I think
he has stood for integrity.
I don't think so. He has always made rulings that seem to favor one section of the political wing, and everybody knows this. So don't think that the public doesn't see that. But the most important thing that I want to
as a final
statement,
thank you.
Parliament is in a crisis, but it is wrong for us to focus so much on Parliament and forget about other institutions. The behavior of Parliament is emanating from the fact that our institutions, other institutions, don't work. So because of parliamentary privileges, people can fight and beat up each other, and they know that nobody will take them to court. But even outside, they extend that because they know that the system doesn't work. So that, what should worry us as Kenyans, and especially the head of state, because he is the chief executive of this country, that how can I look after a country in which institutions, people have lost the confidence in institutions, and everybody thinks that things don't work. Like you can see the MP saying the police doesn't work, the judiciary doesn't work. I think we need to fix this problem. What is lacking is the head of state plus his deputy, the top executive, have not provided leadership. They need to talk to the public and say, enough is enough, and this thing must come to an end.
Fair enough, Prof. Ferdinand, I want to come to you with your final views. And my question to you is, initially you said that there was nothing different between those guys and you. Right, the antics that we saw at the end of last year in Parliament. What difference can you offer? Because you have come out as a sort of almost changed man, except for if there is need to throw a stone again, I will. What difference can you offer should you be elected Kabete MP?
In integrity matters.
On integrity matters, fair enough.
First and foremost, you've just heard from my colleague that Parliament is not a house of bishops. And you have seen them behaving the way you have seen the other day. And what I can only say is that I only did what I did when I was defending the demolitions of my people. And actually I can say that, and land grabbing, and I succeeded because I constructed 11 secondary schools, new ones, and 7 primary schools, new ones, from grabbed land, and also Mamadou Kibaki Hospital. That was about 15 acres that I got from grabbed land. So to me, I'm very proud of what I did. And I do everything for a reason. what I want you to know, Anne, is that we are not very, very happy to hear corruption in Parliament, especially for the committees, because people expect the committees to speak on behalf of the to be the watchdog. But
would you by any means necessary have your fellow MPs sorted?
Yeah.
Need be.
No, some of them actually sometimes require that because they are being pretenders.
You would bring justice to Parliament.
But you see, let me tell you, some of these MPs are very, very big pretenders. But if you can go a little bit to the history of some of them, who speak very roundly about against corruption, they themselves were mentioned somewhere, and they are highly corrupt.
Okay.
But I think in the future we should introduce something else that will make sure that MPs are not corrupt, because the general public expect to get the watchdog from them.
Fair enough. Yeah. Your final, very brief view, sir.
I think I just want to mention something that Prof said on the political will, right at the top, the office of the president and that of the deputy president. I think I've heard President Uhuru Kenyatta being very emphatic that he will not tolerate corruption, and he actually said it very authoritatively that nobody, and indeed nobody in this country, is indispensable. And he said he will never have to pick up a phone to call anybody to do anybody any favors. Today I've heard the deputy president speak about the same thing. Say we will not condone corruption, be it in Parliament, be it in the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. Don't forget, Professor Kisiangani, today I also had the speaker forward a petition by people who are calling for the dissolution, actually the removal of 2 commissioners of EACC. And I think we only need to soul search as Kenyans, even as Parliament soul searches, and indeed inculcate a new culture of non-tolerance to corruption. And I said that will begin even with the way we elect the leaders we elect into Parliament. Don't take
and by holding them to account, perhaps, once they're in office. I thank you all. It's been such a fascinating conversation. We have completely overrun, but I thank you. Baba Yetu. All the best. We'll see how it turns out in Kabete for you. Thank you, Kimani Oishungo, of course, from Power and Privileges Committee, and our very own Edward Kisiangani. We're taking a breather, and we're back after this.